Today on CityCast Nashville, it's time for our Friday News Roundup. Joining me is our executive producer, Whitney Pasterek, and journalist, Radley Balco. From total gridlock at BNA on Monday to the National Guard being sent to Memphis, will Nashville be next? We're breaking it all down. Plus, we'll wrap up with some fun things to do in Nashville this weekend and a little good news. It's Friday, September 19th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Whitney, you and I were lucky to not be flying in or out of BNA this past Monday, September 15th. Unfortunately, our guest today wasn't so lucky. We'll hear about his experience in just a sec, but first, here is what went down. Starting in the afternoon around 3:30 p.m., traffic began backing up going into Nashville International Airport. I'm sure y'all saw on social media, it was full of videos of people dragging their suitcases down I-40 trying to catch their flights.
Dragging their suitcases on the freeway.
Yep. The departure and arrival terminals were gridlocked with bumper-to-bumper traffic. And in the rideshare garage, total chaos, angry passengers, frustrated drivers, and lots of honking, which, always helps when no one can go anywhere. Radley, let's turn it to you. You were there dropping off your wife for a flight. What was your experience?
It was hell. I've never quite had experienced anything like it. We live about 10 to 12 minutes from the airport, which is, pretty dangerous because you think, I can cut it really close and I'll be fine. But the weird thing was we were looking at maps and before we left, and Google Maps had it, at the usual 15, 17 minutes, this was around 6:15 p.m. on Tuesday. But then you looked at Apple Maps and it was 45 to 50 minutes. It takes about an hour to get to the terminal to drop my wife off. And then it got bad.
It got bad.
Over the next hour, I think I moved maybe about 25 feet in my car. And at one point I rolled down my window, there's a police officer there, and I asked him, is this ever going to break up? And he said, we've had people here since 4 o'clock this afternoon. He said, I would anticipate it's going to be at least 3 or 4 hours before you get out.
No.
And I'm a little claustrophobic, so, I'm sitting there in my car with no water. I hadn't eaten all day. I mean, it was pretty bad. It ended up taking about 2.5 hours to get home. And literally, I live 6 miles from the airport. So yeah, it was the longest 20-minute ride of my life.
It's like Gilligan's Island,
Right.
3-hour tour, and then you're drinking coconuts. Did you see anything while you were there that would indicate any of the backups? Obviously, there are all kinds of excuses being made, but did you observe anything out of the ordinary?
No, and nobody had an explanation. I guess I've learned since that there was an accident on the terminal road at some point during the day, probably I think maybe mid-afternoon-ish. But even the police officer that I talked to said they had no explanation for it. They couldn't figure it out. As I was leaving and finally got past that stoplight, just as you leave the terminal, which was one of the main choke points, I'm not going to claim to know what was going on. But what I did see was there were entire lanes, there's all these all the lanes that kind of merge after you leave the terminal. There were entire lanes that the police had blocked off from traffic, and there was no debris on the road, there was no construction going on, and it was just sort of why aren't we using every available lane if we know that people have been stuck here for hours? It didn't make much sense to me, and I'm not gonna, I'm just saying it looked very odd to me. Maybe there was a perfectly legitimate reason for it. But at one point I was just going to abandon my car, try to find a garage or just leave it somewhere because I needed to get home. At one point I was thinking, if I could ditch my car somewhere where it wouldn't be towed, I thought I'll just book a night at the airport Hilton, but that was completely booked solid. There was just one point people were walking over I was told people were walking over the Donaldson Bridge and having people pick them up at McDonald's.
Yeah, we heard from some Hey Nashville newsletter subscribers who were also stuck in that. And one reader who asked that we not use their name was definitely in that crowd. They said, I was walking down Donaldson Pike and to the exit from I-40 in the dark, helping others who had multiple suitcases and pushing a baby stroller for a young mama who was looking for her ride. There were pilots and flight crews walking from Donaldson Pike to the airport. It was so dark and unsafe. I can't imagine being out there. And you know how people are on Nashville roads. It's not great.
I've never been in a situation where there was just no option other than to sit and wait for hours and having no idea when you were ever going to get out of this hell.
Well, Marie, the Tennessean does have a story out where we're getting the closest thing to an excuse / reason why this happened.
That's right.
What's the current status of that?
A bunch of things hit all at once, creating a perfect storm. So, yes, the Tennessean's reporting the TDOT construction that people initially blamed seems to have wrapped up before the trouble even started. But there was an unprecedented surge in ride-hailing activity.
That's such a corporate way to say there were a lot of people who needed to get out of there.
Right. Also, there was a bunch of NFL fans departing from the Titans-Rams game from the weekend, and thousands of convention people were coming and going. From noon to 11 p.m., more than 14,000 cars came through the Ground Transportation Center, 2.5 times more cars than usual. And TDOT also said that there was that car crash that you mentioned, Radley, around 3:30 p.m. on Terminal Drive, and that's what really kicked things off.
As for what they're going to do about it, the airport authority is currently saying they're going to do a full-scale review. We love reviews to identify what else may have contributed to the traffic, implement corrective measures, and develop a stronger response to high-volume events like being an airport. But we did have a reader write in and say that they live right by the airport and their husband travels several times a week. And according to them, the design of the roads, the new design that they've been spending all this time on, is partially responsible for this issue. They say the new system is doing nothing to help. One reader also said she never wants to fly out of Nashville again and will be driving to Chattanooga instead.
Oh, no, don't do that.
Well, it's only 2 hours and Radley was there
that's true.
for 2 hours.
Good point. I stand corrected. But Radley, okay, so here's a question for you. With all this in mind, how do we feel about Elon Musk's Tesla tunnel now?
I mean, if I had confidence that it would be a efficient, cost-productive way of moving people to and from the airport, I would be for it. Unfortunately, given Musk's record, I have zero confidence that it will be any of those things. So, I don't really think it changes my calculus much. I think it's kind of a boondoggle and it sounds pretty dangerous and experimental. I mean, I actually have a theory that Musk, the whole tunnel thing, and this is kind of the way his mind works, that my theory is that he just one day thought it was funny that boring had two meanings and decided to call a company the Boring Company just so he could make the pun.
My goodness.
That tracks. But so you don't think he personally went and put cones down to close off lanes at the airport to sort of prove point of concept, right?
Yeah, anything's possible.
Well, we do have 2 pieces of tunnel time this week. WPLN reported the Boring Company may be tunneling blind. Marie, tell us about that.
Well, so what you mean by that, Whitney, is that they started digging the tunnel and now they're sampling the rock as they go, which is not normal. Usually, construction companies do this type of testing well in advance. This is specifically very concerning for Nashville because, as we all know, underneath our amazing city is a maze of limestone full of cracks, caves, and streams, which could all lead to, say it with me, folks, sinkholes. So the lack of these advanced rock testings has geologists and tunnel experts very concerned. As WPLN put it, without sufficient rock exploration, the Boring Company would essentially be tunneling blindly underneath Nashville. And then one other update, this one came out of Las Vegas this week.
Yeah, the city there, just to remind folks, they've approved 68 miles of tunnel and 104 stations under their city. They've not built 68 miles of tunnel. And last week, unfortunately, a worker on the boring company's Vegas Loop suffered what's being called a crushing injury due to an industrial machinery accident, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Our heart obviously goes out to that worker and their family and everyone else who has been reportedly injured on those Vegas tunnels. We really hope that's not going to happen to any of our Nashville neighbors who choose to take jobs with the boring company here. And I will mention that work has been halted on the tunnels in Vegas due to this.
Well, speaking of safety, we heard back this week from Nashville's Department of Transportation after our recent episode this past Tuesday on the serious safety concerns for walking and biking downtown. Here is NDOT's response.
NDOT's number one priority is the safety of everyone using our roads. People walking, biking, rolling, riding transit, and driving, they wrote to us. We rely on industry best practices as well as local, state, and federal guidance to steer the development of safety improvements. We engage with residents on our programs as well as on an individual project basis while also weighing community input with determined safety needs. Regarding the East Bank Boulevard question, the project sponsor is responsible for choosing the alternative to be constructed. In the case of the East Bank Boulevard, it's Metro Nashville and Davidson County in consultation with subject matter experts, including those at the East Bank Development Authority, NDOT, and Choose How You Move.
All right, why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, we're going to turn our attention to our neighbors in Memphis. President Trump signed an executive order Monday to send the National Guard to Memphis to allegedly combat crime. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee was seen visiting the Oval Office, touting this new partnership. This move comes despite opposition from local residents and Memphis Mayor Paul Young. According to the AP, Trump compared the plan for Memphis to the current military operations in Washington, D.C. This task force will be a replica of our extraordinarily successful efforts here, Trump said, and you'll see it's a lot of the same thing. So, Radley, as the author of Rise of the Warrior Cop, how do you see what's happening in Memphis right now? What stands out to you?
It's a show of force that means almost nothing for crime in Memphis. National Guard troops aren't trained in law enforcement. They don't engage in law enforcement. They're prohibited by law from doing actual law enforcement. They can provide support for the Memphis Police Department and whatever federal law enforcement agencies Trump wants to send into Memphis. But they can't actually do any of it themselves. What we saw in D.C. was not the deployment of National Guard troops into high crime areas. It was in tourist areas. So the idea is for Trump to kind of flex his muscles. And this is something he's always wanted. He's always admired strongmen and authoritarians in other countries who, could send the military in to kind of do their bidding. So, I would not be surprised if crime went down in Memphis while the National Guard is there. There's a concept in policing called the sentinel effect, which is that people don't commit crimes when people are watching. And the more people you have watching, the fewer crimes people commit. So if you have, armed troops in the streets, it's true. People are not going to commit crimes in front of those troops.
But it's not just going to affect the people who would potentially be otherwise committing crimes. We've seen in D.C. that this is having a terrible chilling effect for the owners of restaurants and bars
people
and small
don't want to
businesses
go out.
And bookstores,
right.
Like just life.
But the other thing is that, it's not about crime. It's never been about crime. It's about, showing who's boss. It's about flexing his muscles. It's about imposing his will on cities with large black populations and with black political leadership. But the thing is that, whatever sentinel effect is there when the Guard is there, leaves when the Guard leaves. And so it's not addressing any of the underlying issues that cause crime. It's not addressing mental health issues. It's not doing what violence interruption groups do. It's not doing what a lot of these groups that are doing that have actually been shown to be effective over the long term and for which the Trump administration has got funding.
And can you please just remind our listeners, is it legal for the president to send the National Guard into cities?
It is, with the consent of the state governor, and in this case, he has it with Bill Lee. what happened in California is he tried to send the National Guard in without the consent of the state governor. The state sued, and so far the state has won in court. We will see what happens as that continues to play out through the federal appeals courts. But I do think that ruling is why Trump backed down from sending the Guard into Chicago. But I will say this. I think Trump wanting to send the National Guard into these cities is dangerous and toxic, and it betrays a fundamental ignorance about what the military actually does. And, I think Trump thinks the military is just policing, but harder. And he doesn't quite understand that, a soldier's job is to annihilate a foreign enemy and a police officer's job is to keep the peace and protect our rights. But I will say this, the National Guard is made up of us, right? The National Guard is part-time citizens who, signed up to go into the Guard. And so I think they haven't been subjected to the toxic kind of law enforcement culture that Border Patrol agents and ICE have. And so I think in some ways, they're less likely to engage in some of the really awful stuff that we've seen from DC and Chicago. So Trump didn't send the Guard into Chicago, but he did send a surge of ICE officers and DHI and Border Patrol. And, they're disappearing people. They're pulling people in unmarked cars and driving them off to detainment centers. What's happening in Chicago is bad. And I think by not sending the Guard, a lot of people kind of, I'm going to use the same word again, let their guard down. And we've kind of dropped the ball in documenting the abuses that are happening in Chicago because they aren't coming from the National Guard. But one thing I'd like to point out is, when Trump cleared out Lafayette Park during the George Floyd protests so he could do his weird upside down Bible photo op.
So he walked across the street to stand with a Bible in front of the church that's across the street, but they tear gassed a whole lot of people for him to get there.
And then lied about it. And they violently cleared out that park so he could do it, and then claimed that the protesters were violent. The reason that we know the true story about what happened there is because the National Guard troops and commanders who were there said, that's not what happened. Like, these protesters were not violent. They were very upset by what they saw. And that's because the Guard, again, it was made up of DC residents who were appalled by what they saw. So I think sending the Guard in betrays a misunderstanding and an ignorance of some very important concepts in a free society. But also, in some ways, I'm less worried about what the National Guard may do than I am about what ICE and Border Patrol and DHI are doing right now.
Well, so let's apply this to Nashville. Obviously, we've been saying for a while that there is this reported potential return of ICE starting right about now, right about this time of September, and lasting through December, for which they've requested the administrative help of the National Guard. We don't know if that will look like what happened in May with the kind of large-scale disappearing of people that we saw there and that is currently being seen in Chicago. Congressman Andy Ogles has, of course, been urging the president to deploy the National Guard to Nashville to deal with our crime, even though the Nashville Banner recently reported that violent crime has actually fallen in Nashville by nearly 10%. Both Mayor O'Connell and MNPD spokesman Don Aaron have downplayed the possibility of the National Guard coming here, according to the Banner, saying that no federal or state officials have discussed the possibility with them.
I think the main reason is because, one, I think local news leads with crime every night, pretty much. And so that's what people are seeing. I mean, there's always been this disconnect. If you look at polling, going back decades, there's a huge gap between the number of people who think crime is a problem in the country and the number of people who think crime is a problem in their own neighborhood. So they always think crime is higher than it is, but it's elsewhere, right? And that's because that's what they're saying on the news. I think the right-wing media bubble has become very deft at scaring people about crime, about taking isolated cases and blowing them, out of proportion and trying to terrify people. I mean, on some level, I think it's important to push back when they lie about things and claim that crime is going up when it isn't. On the other hand, it's not about crime. It's never about crime. I mean, Trump said during the campaign that he was going to send the military into Democrat-controlled cities. When he sent the Guard and active duty troops into Los Angeles, which that is way beyond the pale. The Ninth Circuit first upheld that on the reason that Trump had declared a national emergency in Los Angeles. And the way he tried to get around the objection from Newsom and the Posse Comitatus Act was to say, Well, we sent federal agents in there to do immigration enforcement, and these protesters made it impossible for them to do their jobs. So we had to send the military in so that they could carry out their legitimate powers to enforce immigration law. The thing is, the Ninth Circuit bought that argument, but 3 days before that decision came down, Kristi Noem held her press conference where she said the reason we sent the Guard in the military into Los Angeles was to liberate it from its socialist elected leaders, right? So they're doing this thing where they're making sort of quasi-legitimate arguments in court and then revealing what their real motivations and intentions are in public. And because the courts always assume the government is either telling the truth or isn't deliberately lying to them, they'll buy that argument, even if you're saying something different in public.
Well, last thing, Radley, you are very engaged online, and we thank you so much for your knowledge and reporting on these things. What advice do you have for people to keep themselves sane right now?
I mean, I can give advice that I don't follow it. Turning off the phone and going out into the real world, seeing people. I don't do it enough. Actually, I had a friend from college in town last night and went and had a couple of drinks, and it was life affirming. After the Jimmy Kimmel stuff and everything that's going on, it was really nice to just connect with a person and have a couple drinks and talk for a few hours. Acts of kindness are important. I think doing things for other people is rejuvenating, particularly in a time when we all kind of feel like we're all under attack at all times. Expressing gratitude to people who do kind things for you. And I know these that sound like a Hallmark card or something, but it is affirming. My wife, I should do it, but my wife gets up and takes a walk to Shelby Park every morning, and she says it's, does wonders for everything, for her mental health, for, being able to face the day. And I really should join her. I just can't get motivated to go for a walk when I first wake up in the morning. But I should.
I start my day doing that same thing, and I do not bring my phone. I just do the air park and walk and talk to people, check in. It's a beautiful way to start your day. When we come back, we'll take Radley's advice and talk about great ways to get into the world this weekend. And now it's time for good news.
Radley, I was really hoping you were going to sing with us just then.
Good news.
Good news. Yeah.
There we go. We
Great.
got it.
That was perfect.
All right.
Nailed it.
Y'all, it is peak monarch butterfly migration season, and Radnor Lake is seeing a surge of these beautiful butterflies making a pit stop on their journey south. We actually spoke with park manager Steve Ward about it all, and we are thrilled to hear that all their work has paid off in their native grassland preservation. We encourage everyone, like we just said, go outside, touch some grass, go to Radnor and see these butterflies for yourself. And while you're there, you actually can pick up your own native grassland seed packet to help encourage monarchs to visit your home gardens as well.
Nice.
Radley, what's your good news?
So my good news is some advice I took from your show several weeks ago, the episode on farmers markets. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the Growing Together farm, which is an immigrant-run farm. But also, what I really loved about it is the on-site food that was prepared. So we had there was a Filipino place, there was Burmese, there was Bhutanese, there was Nepalese dumplings. I mean, it was inspiring. It was great to talk to these people, to these members of our community that, are kind of have a target on their backs right now. So it felt good to support them as well. I bought a bunch of greens that I have never tried before. I bought some Thai basil and some, fruit, and it was.
So when is my dinner invite?
Yeah, it was
coming.
Well, that was a couple weeks ago, so it's all used up at this point. But we will, maybe next time we go, we can do that.
Well, Marie, what are you excited about this weekend?
Well, you know it. The Nashville Film Festival kicked off last night and will continue on this week through Wednesday. This is such an exciting time because our city welcomes filmmakers from all over the world. But I personally, as a Nashville native, love to see Nashville filmmakers. And so there's 2 docs I recommend that people see to celebrate Nashville. The first one is You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine, which is showing on Sunday at 4:30 at the Regal Green Hills Theater. Also, I'm super pumped about seeing Opryland USA, A Circle Unbroken. It's a throwback to our beloved theme park turned into a mall. The first screening on Saturday is sold out, but they added a new screening for 3 o'clock on Wednesday at the Bell Court. So I hope people come out to that. NashvilleFilmFestival.org. Tickets are still available. You can buy passes for the whole shebang or just single screening tickets. I will be there throughout the week. So please, if you see me, come say hi and we can, talk about all the films.
All right. Well, my big plans for the weekend are continuing to cheer on Nashville SC. Come on, you boys in gold. Huge win this week over Philadelphia, or Philadelphia, as some fans are now calling it. And so that means that we are making it to the U.S. Open Cup final for the first time in franchise history. This is a soccer tournament that dates back to like 1910 in the United States. And we're finally going to the finals. That will be against Austin FC on October 1st. But this Saturday, they're playing Orlando City, and we need to keep this momentum up to win this regular season game to make the playoffs. So I will be maybe at Chapstick, which is now open, the sports bar behind Lipstick, cheering on my boys in gold on Saturday. So that's my big plan.
That's so fun.
And what better thing to do this weekend than early vote? If you live in the 7th Congressional District, everybody needs to go. And while we're mentioning that, I also want everybody, even if you don't live in that district, go to govotetn.com right now and check to make sure that you are still registered to vote. The Secretary of State has removed about 80,000 Davidson County voters from the list due to inactivity and other concerns. And that's more people purged in the last 6 months than in the past 6 years combined. So anywhere you are in Davidson County, please take a second this weekend. Make sure that you're still registered to vote. We also hosted our first ever CityCast Nashville Neighbors member event at Rice Vice on Wednesday night. And Radley's wife, actually a member, a CityCast Nashville neighbor.
She loves her tote bag.
She does love her tote bag?
She absolutely loves her tote bag.
So she would say it's a quality tote bag.
She would definitely say it's a quality tote bag. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we may be having another membership campaign coming up this winter where people can get their hands on it. One of these fresh Radley's wife approved. I love that we're just calling her Radley's wife. She's going to listen to this and stab me.
Liliana Segura, a brilliant journalist.
We love you. But we heard so many stories at this party about why people love listening to the show. One couple, Michael and Sherry, shout out to y'all and congrats on your good score at trivia. They told us that it's their morning routine to get up, make coffee, and listen to the show together. And that just reminds me why we do this. It felt so good to hear. So if you want to be amazing like Michael and Sherry, or even like the brilliant journalist Liliana Segura, go to membership.citycast.fm right now and sign up to support the show. And finally, Marie.
Fridays by the River is tonight. Come out, y'all, and support your community. The Mud Bug Stompers will be playing tonight, as well as we have some food trucks, Bangkok Belly, the Mac Shack, Lady Dogs, and Sweet So. It's a wonderful time to hang out. Bring your kids, bring your dogs. We're drinking beer by the river. I mean, what else could you want in life, truly?
And I'll be pouring one out this weekend for Santa. R.I.P., sir.
That's right, from Santa's
I love
Pub.
your bar.
That's right.
I always will.
Radley, thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you come back anytime.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson. Our executive producer is Whitney Pasterak. Our producer is Daniel Sumstein. Our Hey Nashville newsletter editor is Margaret Kingsbury. And our theme music is by Prof Jenkins. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!